Daniel's here. Correctivity, and thereby homeostasis, autonomy, and sovereignty of European peoples, genus, and species. Okay, then. While we are proponents of free speech here, there are indeed certainly some things which should never be said. I suppose near foremost, no one should ever use the term lover ever again. My lover. Oh, give me a break. What a horrible euphemism. And what a horrible, and the other thing, expression that should be prohibited from free speech. This is where American English is better than European English and languages. In this case, a non-euphemism. European peoples will say, "I'm going to the toilet." And that is disgusting. Whereas Americans will say, "I'm going to the bathroom," or anything but going to the toilet. Give me a break. I don't need to know so graphically what you're up to. So, go to the bathroom, the water closet, the loo, something like that. Okay, then. Wanted to start off today by saying, while I've been critical of these whippersnappers, Joel Davis and Keith Woods, I also want to make it clear with an observation here that I don't view it as a competition of personalities, but a matter of getting ideas correct. And so, if they do something right, that's fine. I will acknowledge it. I'm critical of them where I believe that they're wrong and off the mark. The last conversation of Joel Davis's that I listened to, I thought that he made a very good observation. And who was it in debate with? Oh, Academic Agent, and they were debating. I think they were debating that. It was the one where they're debating nationalism versus imperialism. And Joel Davis observed that you have to understand our traitorous elites if you're going to deal with them effectively. True enough. And he added that some of them, many of them, some proportion of them, undoubtedly think that they are doing the right thing. They think of themselves as virtuous. Now, that, because my platform is well thought out. That does not contradict it by this platform, but it does add a bit of elaboration, or place to elaborate very well. We maintain here that the right-wing elitists and neoliberals and plain liberals are largely operating on an objectivist basis, which severely truncates any accountability to their group, to their species. You can see how that would coincide in someone with a purity spiral, that they think of themselves as virtuous. It's merely adherent to principles, objectively, irrespective. Somehow it serves a universal meritocracy, I suppose. And that's an interesting observation, for one thing, because it presents a problem. When you have elitists who are screwing us, who really are sure that they're doing the right thing. So I wanted to, while I've been critical of Joel Davis and I will remain critical, I don't see the need to walk anything back. Including his Catholicism, which is an absurdity, like all branches of Christianity. And I am on record of observing Christianity as false opposition since 2013. I'm on record as saying that. And as a red caping of our moral order. It was fundamental misdirections of our people. Which is also a hermeneutic misdirection. That universality of Catholicism, which has far more non-European adherents than anything else. It's a catastrophic implications for us. But again, coming back to a simple but good observation of that Joel Davis alerted me to, which is that our emergent qualities are not only of individuals, but of our genetics as a group pattern. And of course, those emergent qualities will naturally put us on a self-corrective trajectory of their own accord, but by themselves, they are not enough, of course, especially not when you're going to put Catholicism on top of it, or any sort of Christianity on top of it. We need a hermeneutic that is going to be corrective and be reconstruct our biology, our homeostasis, with that autonomy and sovereignty. And provide for sufficient accountability through structuring that the concept of unionization provides, the social accountability, which is the opposite of liberalism. And that would be on the basis of the ethno-nations. And to tip my hat where these young guys have some things right, where Keith Woods was saying that nationalism provides inspiration beyond material interests. That it functions on a level almost that religion does. Maybe not almost. That's a good idea and true. However, as we see, when nationalism is not a matter of unionization as it is here, and it does not center itself on a union of the people and correctivity thereof, it's prone to run away in misdirection, as in the case of, say, a Zelensky commandeering nationalism and misguiding as-of types to fight against Putin's troops, and Putin being another right-winger whose nationalism is unhinged to the point of imperialism, and which, because it's short on accountability, again, is being effectively manipulated, at least to some extent, by the YKWs as well. Okay, so where are we? How was our chat? Oh, we have Diana here. Sound is good. Thank you, Diana. You still there? Zedez said she was going to join us today, Diana. We're looking for a woman's perspective. I don't know if she's going to be able to make it. Well, I left a word for her on. I left word with her on Twitter. She's the one who's gotten very angry with me for posting on my Twitter stream pictures of beautiful European women, sometimes partly naked, sometimes fully naked. I do stop short of pornography, but I skirt the edge at times of softcore porn, and I'm not altogether immune to her criticisms and the severe angry reaction that I got from her. However, I can only say in my defense that my Twitter thread was aimed at an audience which is primarily young men of kind of warrior age, and what inspires them. In fact, the second half of the 14 words is famously because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. It inspires me anyway. I mean, it's part, that beauty is a part of us, and it's a part of our biological health and excellence as a people. and aimed at that audience. It might be more understandable. I'm not. It wasn't. I was never. I didn't start out with a family audience in mind and a full ecology of people in mind. Although I must say that ultimately, uh, this is what I do care about, and I don't, and so I don't. I'm not self-righteous about Zed as being angry with me for not promoting a kind of like idea of fidelity, monogamy, and loyalty to the full human ecology of our people. So she's not exactly wrong. What else might I say about it? That uh, it's kind of an addiction on my part. And obviously that's not good. But when I see beautiful women coming up on my Twitter thread, I almost can't help it. Oh, I gotta save this. Oh, I gotta retweet this, and so it is something, and I haven't been able to overcome it just yet. So uh, maybe Zedez can get a hold of her anger and bring out my better angels, because we certainly do need women who have some of the awarenesses that she has of what's going on, and she seems to be understanding some of the things that I'm saying, despite her rage with me and men in general. Um, she's very disappointed with men in the struggle, and that's understandable. But what is not uh, what is not accurate in laying the blame all on men is that women are, or females, it is better said, males and females are susceptible and culpable in the same way to not get it and act in a way that we need to in order to fix these problems and this assault on our people, genus, and species. Now, what Zedez seemed to understand, or what she agreed with, surprisingly, after this was upon something that was pretty much a misandronic statement, or kind of a. Despite that, she's still. I said to her, she was still receptive when I said to her that you are generalizing. You're generalizing white males who are bereft the structuring of social accountability that unionization would provide. Just as they are generalized, just as young males, white males are generalizing of white females who are bereft the structuring of social accountability that unionization would provide. And she said, correctly, said as did, that sounds rational way that I'm not hearing from other men in the movement. And indeed, and I added further that that there are reasons that this is happening. They're not good reasons, but there are reasons why that there are reasons for that, and that she's welcome to talk. She's welcome to talk with me, and that she could be very important, a woman like her. A woman like her in tandem with people like Per Norden from Sweden, with people like Mirthbaron, this guy who lives in Britain. He's of Irish descent, but he's living in Britain. You put three people like that together, and we could begin to, we really have an opportunity for something big. We could save our people, genus and species. Perhaps, with that, save the world, perhaps. I can almost understand how people, some people will be so aggrieved with the cruelty, degeneracy, senseless destruction, vast, obliviously accepted waste, that they wouldn't want to save the world. It's like, the hell with it. I can understand that sentiment. But if you are not merely indulged as an alpha and therefore, are not prone to that, and you are a beta sort who somehow of the strength of your biology is able to persevere and see the importance of your life, the importance of our life, and the value and enjoyment of it. And if you endure and you have judgment, you will see that. Then you won't mind saving the world, even if many people don't deserve it and don't deserve to be saved, quite frankly. You'll see that many of our people and our patterns, genus and species, on balance, do deserve to be saved. As surely as the rainforests and the species of animals, the oceans. And to do that, of course, it's eminently practical to be able to coordinate with other peoples, with non-Europeans. Coordinate is a more precise term than get along with, but it's on the order of that. Okay, let me put the link in. Oops. I'm disappointed that Zedez isn't here. She didn't promise me that she would, but she said mornings are good with her. And it's already getting close to, I think it's getting near midday on the East Coast. I think she's in Quebec. She's of half French and half Irish extraction, and she's living in Quebec. And okay, here's the link. Here's the error. Of course, before she comes, if she comes, um, naturally, I'm following the goings on of the war in Ukraine, and am disgusted with the consistent, pretty much criticism of singularly critical view of, or heavy-handed critical view of the West and the United States in this matter, and kind of apologetics for what Putin is doing. And I'm looking into it, and I can't really see an excuse for this approach. Yeah, there are bad things. There are bad things coming from the West. This platform is no. You're not going to see us defending the United States, particularly as it's headed by YKW interests in tandem with right wingers and liberals and neoliberals. And that distinction should be made from the general populace of America. Those are the interests being served, not European diaspora per se. So when you're being critical of America, no matter who it is, whether it's Sam Dixon or Black Pigeon Speaks or Academic Agent or any of these people who are critical of America, this is what a distinction they should be making carefully, because they're not exactly representing accountable to the interests of of the European diaspora there, to their interests as a species. But I understand, having lived there the first 34 years of my life and experienced it, the onslaught of political correctness, the Frankfurt School, the anti-white hatred, the destruction of our people, of what is pretty much our greatest treasure. How people could come to think that just anything, including Vladimir Putin and Russia, is the good guy, quote, by comparison. You'd have to have been out long enough and to have healed those wounds for long enough, and to see that life doesn't, not only doesn't have to be that way, but to come to a better historical and geopolitical view of Putin, of Russia, of the Soviet Union, of the legacy of, let's call it, their right wing, in tandem with, their kosher, if not overlords, cohorts, or prompters. To realize that they're not providing the caring answer for us. I mean, obviously, it should be obviously not. Some of these people, like Iron Duke, 99, the British military man who lives in Australia, are just like of a military mindset to where they're so involved, they're so enmeshed in the calculus and the strategy of militarism that the thought of how do we do something besides war is not doesn't have a large, what's the word that was cool word that people have been using, signal, although it should, you know, and this and people who are and there has been some voices chiming up. A lot of false either or. There's a lot, or false dichotomy. You know, it's like, oh, they want to say Putin is strictly evil and that Zelensky is good. Well, clearly in this platform we're doing neither. We recognize calling our people to go to war against the Russian military is what someone presiding not in our interests would do. And similarly, Kordakovsky was expressing his genetics when he says that, you know, we have to stop them there, otherwise, you know, because Putin is a bully. He's acting like a thug, and thugs only know power, and they're only going to stop when they recognize that you have the power to stop them. And therefore, if you don't stop them in Ukraine, it's going to keep on going. So we should put all our, you know, warring and violent might behind Zelensky's design and bring the whole. Where Kordakovsky is dead wrong and simply expressing uncaring for our genetics, you know, let alone our homes, our infrastructure, our life's work, our treasure, our historical treasures, was expressing a lack of concern for that by means of his genetics, is in not recognizing the fact that we do have it taken care of, the calculus of the strength to hold up to a bully through American and European military. Maybe Putin is crazy enough to try to attack a European nation, but he would be crazy to do it. And at this point, I wouldn't put it past him, given that, you know, who the hell would have thought that he would be crazy enough to attack Ukraine? I mean, I'm looking at the situation in the Donbass, or these eastern provinces of Ukraine, And that's where that, along with an isolated incident in Odessa, where Pravi sector, the right sector, or Azov or something like that, had trapped Russian, pro-Russian sympathizers in a union building there, burned the building, and then shot them when they were trying to escape. So he would cite that incident plus the civilian casualties in particular, the Russian civilian casualties in Donbass, which it seems there were about not quite 4,000 over the years since the Maidan uprising of 2014. Mostly, it seems, although the Russian sympathizers say they're all civilians, I don't think so. Most of the 14,000 dead are apparently military combatants. Now, indeed, there's been an escalation, a wrongful escalation of conflict. What I hadn't been aware of, because I wasn't paying close attention to what's going on in the Donbass. Give me a break. What I hadn't been paying attention to was the thuggish self-righteousness of the Russian partisans there. I mean, vulgar thuggery, brutal, which it seems to me I'm not sure that called upon a hard response, let alone a military response from Ukraine. I really don't know how valuable those areas are to Ukraine. It seems that they can live without it. That mainly what's there is coal and industry. Well, they could, in theory anyway, they could reestablish industry in the West. But but just letting it go was not what's been done. The Azovs, they're and so on, in particular, were fighting them militarily and shelling them, and that's where apparently some of these Russian civilian casualties came in. And there was apparently also a few atrocities, which were denounced and even by the Ukrainian government, and the perpetrators were I think imprisoned. But you definitely had some crazy right wingers, some seriously, some of these Bandera types and whatnot, literally neo-Nazi types, which is, again, to underscore what makes this platform of ours so important, that people, that Nazism be understood as an epistemological error, and it brought these impulses brought under control, under correctivity, a correctivity which Hitler lacked for his for his national fallacy. But it's an unhingedness and a rigidity which is easily manipulated, and has been in this case, by the kosher folk. Even Victoria Nuland and Zelensky, to an extent, are deploying this. And these guys are so over the top that they're susceptible to be used like that. Whereas if they were as kosher-wise as they might think they are, they would understand the saying that war is a jay harvest. We're the ones who lose. So anyway, so I do, but having said that, it's also true that they were attacking pretty much a militarized people, even if it wasn't altogether explicit. They were being armed by Russia over there in the eastern provinces, and they pretty much only attacked them in those eastern provinces, with the one exception of that incident in Odessa. Oh yeah, now there were attempts at resisting the Russification and applying strict rules of Ukrainian speaking that were impractical, I suppose, and there was some incidents, thuggish expressions of hatred of Russians by the Ukrainians and so on. But well, how about this? Two wrongs don't make a right. You don't go and attack a whole nation upon that. If you're Vladimir Putin and you have any sense, go attack all of Ukraine and start destroying their homes and killing them, including their children. You would say, well, they tried regime change. How did they try regime? These right-wing pro-Putin sympathizers are saying, well, they tried. I mean, look, there was a free election in 2010, and Yanukovych was freely elected. This Yanukovych, the same guy who twice was elected. The first time he was elected, they recognized that it was a staged election, and then they had this orange revolution, which was supported by the population. It wasn't sheer Soros astroturf. They didn't like the staged election and having Putin try to put in his stooge Yanukovych. In fact, but they really tried. They tried so hard that they actually poisoned Yushchenko with dioxin. They tried to kill him. Putin did. And it's not the first. This is like part of Putin's modus operandi. Such a great guy. He goes around poisoning his political opponents. So and yet these right wingers, these American right wingers, and so on, are defending Mark Collette and whatnot, are defending Putin and Yanukovych as someone who was like, oh well, he was kind of okay. He was sort of elected. Not exactly. Okay. Yes, we know that Yushchenko and Horkovich, is it, followed, and obviously Zelensky were puppets of the other side. We're not saying that. We're not denying that. We are denying your position. Maybe your palms are greased with rubles. I don't know. Certainly are suspicious. People like Collette and David Duke. So when he was trying, but Yanukovych was trying to play both sides. He was basically to begin with Putin's man, like we said, and he came from that Donbass region. But he was trying to play both sides, and he was being given a lot of money by Paul Manafort, who went on to be Trump's campaign director, and he was making noises in getting money from the West. He was making noises like he was going to move Ukraine towards the European Union and NATO. And then at the last moment, he pulled out and sided with Putin. He said, no, I'm going to join in union with Putin. So then you had Victoria Nuland and her husband, Robert Kagan, and so on, encouraging, taking grassroots elements of indignation, Ukrainian indignation, and commandeering it with his in the Maidan revolution, quote revolution. And again, I stand corrected in not acknowledging that there was a vast groundswell of Ukrainian nationalism beneath this, even if there was a layer of astroturf on top with Victoria Nuland and such, who again was going to be using some of the was Machiavellian enough to use some of the neo-Nazis. And that's where the fighting in Donbass started taking its toll on the numbers of people. And it seems to me that is what should not have happened. If we had people acting in the interests of Ukraine, leaders acting in the interest of Ukraine, it seems to me that they would have said, okay, maybe it's historically wrong and unfair, but there's so many Russians there, and there's a good percentage of the people in these two provinces who want to be part of Russia. Let them be part of Russia. Let them have it. We've already got Crimea, and that's tragic, but we're not going to bring that back anytime soon. There's too much military there, too much Russian military there. It's too important to Russia. Um, so let's give them that, and let's work on developing the rest of Ukraine as an ethno state, as an ethno nation. Maybe even Mariupol would have had to been ceded to the Russians so that they have a bridge to Crimea. And if that's what it took, get the Azov people out of there and their crazy over the top right wingness out of there and move them just, as a defensive force, bring them around to normalcy as best you can as a defensive force within Ukraine. So long as we have Odessa, we have a big port of Odessa, and we have Kiev, and we have Lvov, perhaps Kharkov, that we've got the makings of a big, solid nation. We don't need these other parts. And then we could slowly, Putin's, the kernels of valid concern that of ethno-nationalism in Russia against, the destructive things coming from the West, which are indeed you seek for other ways to fight these things as ethno nations, both Russia and Ukraine. And one of the ways, the abstract way to do that, to begin with, to be applied concretely, is through the concept of national unionization. And this is a concept which our enemies, the people who don't care about us, people who are afraid of us, don't want us to understand, appreciate, and to see how it plays out historically. Okay, now I've got to go to the bathroom as we people who are better English, and I'll be back in 1 minute. Remember, we do not say go to the toilet. Okay, I'm back. Now then, the links there for anybody who wants to join me. Now, another thing that Zedez was complaining about in her anger with men. Obviously, she's had bad experiences. She's saying that men are enjoying the life of Riley out there, and women are left to clean up the mess. That's what she said, and it's like she reminds me of the reverse version of me in my early 20s, when I was still in my misogynist stage. Well, there are, I think that most where the manosphere critique is correct, Roger Devlin and so on, that there are, according to the Pareto 80-20 rule, there are that 20 or 15% of alpha males who are living the life of Riley. Many males are not, don't have such a great life, and some men have pretty horrible lives. And in fact, I mean, in terms of who's making the mess, who has more power in this situation, and I can make a valid argument that females bear their share of the responsibility for making a mess of things. But it's moreover is that, you know, looking to it in terms of who is having the life of Riley, having it easy, and you know, again, a good percentage of women, and that they're leaving it, you know, equally, at least equally valid argument, leaving it to men to clean up the mess. But there's enough blame to go around. That can be sorted out again. It's just that she's obviously in the throes of reaction to some bad relationships, and it's unfortunate. I don't see her in the chat yet. I did last time. But the idea of hypergamy does seem to be, female hypergamy does seem to be true enough that a majority of women are only interested in a minority of men, and it's leaving both genders unhappy overall. As most men are not being afforded a supportive relationship, and neither are most women, because they can't keep these alpha male, or alpha males are just moving on to the next woman that whenever it fancies them. Now then, this is something. These are injustices and destructive patterns and behaviors that can be reined in with the concept of unionization. Um, and the institutionalization of monogamy as revered, as a sacred option, a sacred choice. A choice with which, with which you would get help, because you are in theory making a choice for life. So you would have to be careful and match up appropriately. And that, contrary to those of a natural fallacy bent, we would be asserting that monogamy, even lifelong monogamy, is possible for people. We're not animals. Yes, it's, a lot of people won't be able to do it. That's not the point. The point is that it not be flouted, and that the option be there. Two key components: that the option for monogamy be there, and the boundaries, our group boundaries, be respected. And a huge amount of destructive anxiety is staved off. Not only anxiety, but pessimism, skepticism, disillusionment, the demoralization is mitigated, is greatly alleviated. And it's not only, and with that, it's not only the Abrahamics who are lording themselves as the ones who bring monogamy and virtue to us, because they're not. They bring universalism and uncaring of our biology to us. Is what they bring. Whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Islam, these are not the religions of our people, and they're not the ones who are to preside over our sacrament and the institutionalization of marriage and monogamy. Furthermore, because we have borders and boundaries, or would, in our unionization, we could cope and even derive benefit in terms of adding aspects of fitness by those who, within reason, who are, they'd be subject to accountability, but who are not perfectly monogamous, let's say. Certainly not 100% monogamous through their whole life. Certainly not having only one partner through the whole life. I would imagine that you have to have a certain amount of that option too, in order to test out and to select for some more necessarily feral capacities of individualism. As long, and we would be, we would not make that illegal or punishable provided they were accountable and not unreasonable in their conduct, provided that they're staying within our kind. Now, if they want to mess around with non-Europeans, that's another matter, and how to deal with that is a tricky issue, as I've discussed before. But we would somehow provide incentives and advantages to those who are monogamous and married and maintaining that virtue. And we would somehow, I don't know, attach penalties, but perhaps some like minor penalties or maybe even more severe where they're conduct themselves like pigs to those who are not adherent to monogamy. But it's very important that we have that in order to stave off demoralization as a part of our, and to make that a part of our moral order. I feel quite sure that would alleviate the anxiety that a lot of young people go through. That undoubtedly kills a lot of them in one way or another, with despair. Knowing that personal justice is provided for and cared for, but also justice to our genetic capital, to our collective, is looked after, to our human ecology. For all the destruction we've undergone, and it's been horrible. The quality's lost, the numbers lost. If with this concept of the DNA nations and the unionization of genus and species looked after, if people like Zedez, like Perry Norden, like Mirth Barron were to help and get this accounting in order, well, what a great relief. What a comfort that the genetics and expressions thereof that we hold so dear are being looked after, that we assure, yeah, there are these numbers and these qualities, and we're maintaining that. We're looking to maintain that, we do, by means of our unionization. There's not going to be any elitists and outgroups who will destroy us. We'll have our wife. We'll have our children. And our children will be protected, because, we simply cannot let little white kids come into this hellscape. Can't do that to them. And that's a part of the 14 words too. Not just the beautiful women that pisses off Zedez. to see in my Twitter thread. And again, we all are. And this, coming from a platform of pervasive ecology, of human ecology. The profoundness of our evolution, where in that perspective, you really do respect those of us who are old, not the exemplars of European beauty, maybe anything but. And it doesn't matter if when they're accountable, they're accountable to not drag us down. And it's not, and we're neither saying that, our beautiful specimens and our geniuses, we're neither trying to drag them down. In fact, we're trying to support them. Nor are we saying that that these types, the marginal or the less fortunate specimens, the less brilliant of us, we're not saying that they're not a part of our ecology and they should be there should be a program targeting them for eugenic elimination either. We're not doing that either. Again, there's a reasonable amount of help that you extend to people. There's a reasonable social safety net, and some people may try to take advantage, but we have ways to stave that off. And if with a certain amount of help they don't survive, people don't survive, that's tragic, but we're reasonable, and we do have compassion. You do the best you can. You don't let people drag you down either. It's a trajectory. I don't know if it fits exactly, but it's where the Augustinian devils do the selecting. Yes, we try to match the people up, allow them to match up appropriately and fairly, but if nature, as it were, not us, but nature, doesn't allow them to survive, then so be it. We'll help them as much as we can, as opposed to eugenics, a deliberate program of eugenics where you are deliberately trying to kill some certain people off and making a program of that, and to quantify others. Now, there's a kind of natural outlook where that sort of happens naturally and kind of naturally and kind of reasonably, where people who are lucky and well-formed and so on are having more children, and people who are struggling or those traits are being bred out. That's one of the things that I find eugenics disgusting, or people are into it, because, well, I mean, it's something that happens anyway. You don't have, it's when you try to get too logical about it, you're likely to be handling matters these profound matters of evolution in a very shallow way. That does harm to the profound, deep ecology of our species and genus. And this platform is not supremacist, it's anti-supremacist. That doesn't mean that we are trying to keep people down. If our people, we want our people who are geniuses, who do great things. And we want them rewarded to have good lives. We're not against private property. We're not against wealth. We're not against free enterprise. Even though this is a left ethno-national platform, we're not supremacists. We're not imperialists. We maintain our species, and we maintain the means and accountability, and maintain the means to coordinate with others through our own accountability. To begin with, we might coordinate with other peoples and negotiate pervasive ecology thereby. Now, Zetas, where the hell are you? I told you that I'd be doing a stream today. Does anybody want to join me? If not, what I might do is hang on for another 5-10 minutes and then come back later if somebody sends word that they're available to speak, because I'm eager to get this show on the road with the likes of good people like Per Norden and Mirth Baron. And I hope Zetas, I don't know, she might be too much of a live wire. Maybe she's too, maybe she'll remain too right wing to be able to work with me. But all it takes is one energetic, motivated, intelligent woman who knows what's going on, and that could be a real help. As I said, they can you can literally save the world and our people, genus and species. You have that power through this platform, because we're not founded on some of the basic radioactive mistakes that, say, Mark Collette will be making. Mark Collette is hanging out with Jason Cohn, and David Duke, an academic agent, and all these guys are on a merry-go-round. He's like, they have no and what's his name, Millennial Woes, and Freudy Midyard. They have no. Oh, here we are with Mark Collette. Mark Collette saying that Mein Kampf is his favorite book. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. And this platform is free of that. It's free of Nazism and Hitler, and the kind of scientism that goes along with that ideology, and this strange, arcane sort of Heinrich Himmler spooky stuff. Of course, either way, beyond or within nature or beyond nature, not functioning normally within praxis and its correctivity. So we're free of that stuff. which turns normal people off, and it should. And I'm just surprised. And we're free of the people who are naive about the kosher folks. We're not naive about them. And that would go to, say, an Iron Duke 99. Colin Liddell, he might be naive, but there might be a bit of a self-serving naivety as a businessman, though. Anyway, genetically, they are a different people, and so they can have their union and look after theirs, which they do, and we look after ours. It's not our program to harm them. It's our program to look after ourselves, to our homeostasis, while they have shown themselves to be experts at disrupting our homeostasis, our would-be unionization. Essentially, with the red caping misrepresentation of postmodernity in the left. It has our people attacking the very concepts that we need. Chasing these red capings of important ideas, misrepresentations. And we're not this, and this is a difficult one in terms of popularity and a deep tangle. We're not tangled up with the nonsense of Christianity. And its misdirection of its red caping and the false opposition of what should be our moral order, our true moral order. So we have the grounds here. We have the solid grounds, the correct basis. I'm sorry, that is why understanding that and this process, this hermeneutic process, understanding that and this social constructionist process is how it is the vehicle and the platform to save ourselves and to begin the course immediately. Diane, who's been in the chat, I don't know if she still is, was saying that she encouraged me to get deeper. Well, I have to say, I'm sad. I know that this platform is deep. It's deep like Aristotle was deep. It's deep like our discoverers of the double helix and our genetic code are deep. It's deep as our ethnographers and our greatest philosophers like Heidegger and Aristotle were deep. How far back do you want to go? Bowery says he wants to go back 6 million billion years or whatever into sexual dimorphism. How far back do you want to go? And in our evolutionary history, how deep into our genetics do you want to go? Well, however far back you go, if we're not here talking about it with one another, if we're not here to talk about it, hardly matters, does it? And yet these people, these right-wingers, they flout social constructionism. They flout postmodernity without understanding that these things are quite what the doctor ordered for our interests, especially in the Freud Midyear. He's always talking about Northwestern European and Kevin McDonald, Northwestern Europeans. It's like it's an asshole thing for them to only care about those Europeans, but especially if they are, let's say, more individualistic and more, as I would say, prone to Augustinian objectivism. It's all the more reason why they need the program of social constructionism's sensitization to the processes by which our shared products are made. The interactive process. It's not social constructivism, which focuses on the products. It's a social constructionism, which focuses on the interaction and the process. Again, one of the important things about social constructionism, as I've said, is that it's always recognizing at least a modicum of agency for our individual and group part. Whether literally constructing things together like a building, or by analogy, admittedly a bit awkward, clunky an analogy, but more than fair enough, we construct a child together socially because, yes, while a couple does this in relative isolation, they don't do this without a broader social network somehow. And at very least, we retain agency in the determination of how facts count. That is to say, we're not denying facts and truth in social constructionism. And as the red caping of it would assert is done. Jared Taylor says, oh, they think that race is just this optical illusion. Well, no, that wouldn't be social constructionism, because that would be Cartesian and that would be solipsistic, which is not, and it's by definition, you're making things up that nobody can agree with in the right mind. That's not social. So that's not representing social constructionism. But what agency is there with regard to facts is how these facts come to count between us. At very least post hoc, you might not be able to have a lot of agency in the very moment that you factually get hit over the head by a 2x4. But if you recover, you there begins to be at least a modicum of agency, which is shared with others as to how that fat comes to count, and that matters. Um, so there's more literal sense of social constructionism, of literally like constructing a building together. There's the metaphoric, as in parents constructing a child. There's the and with the help of some sort of input from any number of people around them at present and historically. And then three, there's the hermeneutic to manage the non-Cartesian process of inquiry between rigor and imagination, as need be, to facilitate systemic maintenance. And that hermeneutics is necessary for the liberation from modernity's mere facticity and the arbitrary episode into coherence and accountability for both individual and to follow the historical expanse and temporal systemic breadth of our people. And again, fourth, there's the post hoc attribution as to how fats come to count. That guy may think he's a woman, but he has a weenie and a Y chromosome. That's a fact. And for us, as sane people, that means that he cannot use the ladies' room or compete on the women's swim team. Of course, the bizarre gender stuff is a red cape to make the concept of social constructionism didactically repulsive to whites, to dissuade our people from it. It's what they say, it's what, quote, the left does. Those social people from their sociology classes, as some dumb reactionary like guest worker would say. Those social justice warriors, as the Church of Entropy would try to say. As if we shouldn't be social justice warriors. Of course we should be. What a stupid meme to flout. Oh, you want to be against equality and against social justice warriors, and you think that this is a really compelling meme to organize our people, do you? You're not having a red cape wave before you and chasing it, a dumb bull. But to overshoot, to overreact to the red cape, to react to the deterministic extreme of scientism, reduces our agency, keeps us as rigid, rationally blinded, susceptible to infiltration, low on social accountability and correctability, and thus manipulable. Where are we in terms of our... now, I'm making a hell of a lot of sense today. I know that I'm right. I know that what I'm saying is important and good. And yet, I've got... I see one follower right now, and whereas these other guys will have hundreds listening on to their talk, and thousands listening upon their uploads. Okay, the algorithm is doing its thing. It's not the market speaking, but kosher marketing speaking. That's true, but it's also these dumbass right wingers and their conceit and their meanness, their pettiness, their selfishness, their egos that are doing this too. Like I said, it's like when Joel Davis and Keith Woods, when they have something right, I'm going to say it when they do some things well, because it's not about competing with them. It's not about trying to drag them down to make myself better. It's about getting things correct. If only they felt the same way. Well, if only someone like Millennial Willis felt the same way. But I guess not. So I'm looking to other people to facilitate this, what is the path to our salvation, to our autonomy and sovereignty, which is what we're after if we're sane. To our health and survival and flourishing. There was the link. I don't know. I don't know who I'm up against in this hour. I'm gathering that, quote, everybody is over at Telegram now, and you can somehow do podcasts there. And I signed up for it. Oh, I don't know, months, maybe even a year ago. I don't know what, but I've never used it. And I will try to get that in order, my Telegram situation. I also signed up for Odyssey, but I haven't done anything with that either. I will do that. I have posted some BitChute, which I haven't used in a while. I am still on Twitter and here on YouTube, obviously. And maybe some of the lack of participation that I'm suffering is due to not being on Telegram and Odyssey. I don't know. That might have something to do with it. Now, yes, I've been cruelly antagonistic of some people in the struggle. I don't deny that. I also don't apologize for it, because usually when certain things to me are such bad mistakes that I will get mean with people, especially when they are abusing me and trying to bury this what is superior platform. Yeah, I'll get mean. I will. I don't care who it is. Richard Spencer, Joel Davis, David Duke, Mark Collette. I don't care who it is. They're doing certain things, and they're trying to push me aside at the same time. Yeah. I'll get rough with them. If nothing else, if not only to get their attention, to get the attention of other people, to markedly distinguish this platform from what they're doing, from the mistakes they're making. The killing fields, who is trying to bury me? Well, a sort of right-wing clique, as it were, with the encouragement of the kosher folks. But basically Christians and Nazis, neo-Nazis, Christians, and the kosher folk, mostly. There's an arrogant, egotistical, scientistic element that is more comfortable with those foibles, that also doesn't much care for me. But for the most part, that's it. It used to be, roughly it could be characterized as the Regnery circus. The killing field. This is a very narrow niche. What is a very narrow niche? There's no narrow niche here. This is as broad as it can be. We're talking about all European peoples, and as a basis in DNA nations, we're not even excluding Christians. We're not going to shy away from this platform. It's not going to shy away from what we really think of Christianity. And yeah, I know that Nazism is popular with some of these purported white nationalists. They can go to their Nazi sites then, but most people are not down with Hitler, and therefore Ours is this is not the narrow platform. The Nazis are the narrow niche. The Christians are the ones who are basically falling by the wayside with an obsolete um, media. The entire scene is not popular. Well, I'm focused here on what we can do and not what we can't do. Um, I think there's going to be a good percentage of people who want to survive and want to survive in the kind. They're not only comfortable, they recognize the necessity of their kind for their existence and certainly for their happiness. And I think one expression of that killing fields, you're never going to get a wide spread of collective following from this bullshit. You're wrong. And besides, it's not, the material is so variegated. It connects with so many things that people are interested in through hermeneutics. And even if it's on the genetic level, the popularity of these genetic tests, people are interested in their genetics. It doesn't always mean that you want to survive in kind, but indeed, many will. Just like many are interested in preservation of animal species or environment or rainforests. Killing fields, it doesn't sound like you are, it sounds to me like you are a hostile interlocutor. I'm not going to kick you out yet, but these questions are very like Claire Call like. You don't. You're not coming from a position of goodwill, apparently. So I don't really care what you say too much, to be honest with you. I'm not here to be interrogated by people posing as skeptics when really they are. When they say, "Who's trying to bury this platform?" Well, people like you. Contentious of the scene. Well, this platform is contentious of the right wing scene too, and has been. I have been for not just contentious. I'm critical of it, and I've pretty much resolved how and why it fails. How they're burying this platform, and I've also explained how it is that they're burying and diverting from this platform. YouTube might not be the right place to get it, for it to the spark to take hold of the kindling. I might have to maybe Telegram will be the place, but really, I'm just getting to a point where this worldview is crystallized, and I can talk in terms of like how to, now that it's on safe grounds, because it's not, there's nothing really that antagonists could say to try to bury it or to stop this platform that would be valid. We're not proponents of violence or that or anything like that. So it's a safe platform, and that's one reason why I'm in a way happy to be on YouTube, because we should be able to be on YouTube. we should be able to say this anywhere. And it's part of what can distinguish this platform from now. The people have to, go and sneak around on Telegram or, Gab or wherever else these right wingers go. Well, we have a fruitful ontological framework here. And yes, it is, the scene is full of, I don't know about pseudo intellectuals. I wouldn't say that they might. I'd say pseudo thought leaders. Some of them are kind of, borderline erudite. Yeah, but they are self-absorbed. Someone like Millennial Woes is clearly, he values himself over what's best in service of our people. There was another graphic example of that. One of these characters, an academic agent, is full of shit. Iranian guy. He, I guess, he would fit the bill of that. This thing, this boomer truth regime is such jive, and they're all enamored of Paul Gottfried. Oh my God! You want to know who's trying to bury me? And then you listen to Paul Gottfried and listen to who they keep platforming over there at Gottfried and Cotto. This Halsey English guy. I mean, it's just, again, it's a disgrace. I don't care about Ukrainians, and I don't give a damn if Putin nukes them off the face of the earth, and nobody does care, and Americans, they don't even know where this place is on. They can't even find it on the map. Speak for your damn self. Speak for your damn kosher self. Really outrageous, and this is the kind of people they have there. What was Cotto saying? Cotto was saying some outrageous things too. All about how I just felt sympathetic to way too sympathetic to Putin, and of course, not going to identify Zelensky for what he is. Okay, there's the link again. Zedez, where the hell are you? You said you wanted to talk. We could have talked about the history of feminism from Simone de Beauvoir, first wave, to second wave with Betty Friedan, to third wave with Carol Gilligan, and the fourth wave with Judith Butler, and how these things are affected, part of their problem, and how neo-traditional women don't have the right answer completely with these postmodern circumstances, and why, illustrating thus why we need to understand what postmodernity was meant to do. So the killing fields, no, it's not true that this platform is not going to appeal to a wider audience. It will. Because we have we're basically on the gold mine, or probably better said, we have the source of oil, the source of a myriad of vital sustenance and nutrients for our people. In this platform. If anybody wants to join me, I'll hang on for another 5 minutes, and I'll talk with them if I recognize them as a interlocutor operating in goodwill. Otherwise, I'll save my StreamYard hours for a time when one of these people will join me who can help facilitate this DNA Nations project and our unionization as such. Nothing really to be afraid of. I think that I recall Mirth Baron expressing some reservation about submitting his DNA for analysis. I think that's I can see some people being a little bit worried. If you have maybe if you have a criminal record, or if you have dead bodies behind you, but otherwise I don't see what you're trying to protect, because if they want your DNA, they can just go through your garbage, find a can of vanilla Coke that you just drank, and get your DNA. So you're not really gonna protect yourself by not submitting your DNA. But on the other hand, you are definitely giving proof that you are a bona fide member of our people, and that you're not a part of some alien species. And once again, I need to emphasize that this is not about 1,000% purity. Yes, we want to maintain our purer forms. That's valid. But if somebody has like a 4% Egyptian or something, I'm gonna say, oh, that's it. You can't be a part of our union. How to deal with the Christians? That's another issue. Of course, if you're Christian, you have European genetics. We're not excluding you. We're just, basically this platform is not going to subscribe to your religion because we don't see it as uh, conducive to our genetic interests enough. I know Christians make the argument, well, we have lots of babies. Well, maybe they do. Uh, but sorry, can't trust that text, and nobody with any sense can. It's obviously somehow devised, maybe not entirely consciously, but devised to overthrow Rome and by extended analogy, overthrow Europe. I mean, I can't imagine anything more egregious and saying, here, this is your moral order. I mean, that jive. That jive is your moral order, and you have to, and you're supposed to false opposition, red caping of moral order. I can't think of anything more horrible to do to our people. Okay, I'm going to give this guy, cybernetic overlord, a chance, but I'm not expecting anything but a troll. We'll see. Okay. I don't know if that was deliberate or a mistake, but I'm assuming that you were a troll, and not surprisingly. Okay, so one more minute, I'll hang out. I'm sorry that Ceres didn't make it today. There are ways to work out things nicely between the genders. He's back. Maybe that was a mistake. Okay. Hello.
Yeah, hello. How are you?
Ah. Okay, Patrick.
I'm not here to troll. I'm just here to support you.
Great. Glad to hear.
I was listening to your conversation and your critique of the right and the scene, and this is some of the same things I've experienced, albeit modified. I've modified a bit of my outreach and praxis more so than you to try to appeal to more common people and more common. I understand the aesthetics you're going for, though.
Okay. Well, takes all kinds. So and you can have patience for a more honorary sort that which and hopefully bring them around in a way that I can't. So I don't
I'm just wondering though, what is the demographic you're going for exactly? Are you going for more of the refined demographic? What age
I would
range in particular?
I wouldn't say so. To me it's always a to whom it may concern audience. Um one audience idea I always have in mind is someone like me when they were younger, what I needed to know and didn't have. I think that's one operating principle. But just any white people, man or woman of any age, who is interested in preserving our genus and species. So I The reason why I talk in these academic terms is because that's the level that had to be sorted out, because that's what's been mucked up by our enemies. I'm willing anytime to try to make it understandable, intelligible to a more broader audience. Although I don't see why it would be uh, so hard to understand. I don't. It's they can if they have to look up the word homeostasis or something, it shouldn't be too hard. Um, and if they think that's hard, I'll try to help them understand. I'm not like a snob about it.
Well,
Um,
do you think people that such as that can't understand homeostasis are even worth reaching out to? Do you think there has to be a certain kind of comprehensive levels for someone to even be reachable?
uh, Maybe, but I'm not worried about it. If they reach out, if they say to me, I don't understand, I'll explain it to them. That means that they want to know. Uh, it's like I said, it's a to whom it may concern message. Um,
Well, you seem to be at a different level than a lot of people that are in this, and even the more popular people. I just don't think your message is going to be completely embraced at this time. There's just
oh,
not enough racial consciousness amongst, I would say, the type of whites you want to reach.
well, I don't mind. I don't mind doing a vanguard kind of thing. I'm like I said, if I only reach people who want to go with this unionization of our genetics, so that like you, for example, can preserve your uh, Welsh and German ancestry.
Yes.
Um, I'm all for it. And
Unfortunately, in America,
but that's not too muddish. That's like a pretty normal Northwestern European combination.
yeah, it is, but yet and still, there's like this uneasy kind of balance. I think in Americans, especially, that don't have any kind of grounded foundation. Thus, the reason for my name, Cybernetic Overlord, which kind of reflects kind of the territory I guess you were trying to get into. You
Yeah.
have to also contend with stuff like cybernetics and transhumanism and sort of the tech technocroc techcrocus sorry
Technocracy. Yeah.
technocracy when trying to deal with these issues. This is
Well, why I'm saying
very
while I'm saying it's
pertinent issue.
okay, it could be a problem too. I mean, Southeast German and Welsh can be uh, different enough so that it's a problem, so that it's not optimal too. These are the kinds of things that have to be dealt with. Why I'm one of the reasons why I'm so eager to do this through these genetic means, and with the assistance of scientists who know what they're talking about. Um, because me half Italian and half Polish.
How successful? Let
That
me ask you.
that
I don't mean to cut you off, Daniel, but how
go
successful have
ahead.
you been in those terms, like reaching out to not just people on the internet, let's say, certain people that fancy themselves as, intellectuals or, thought leaders, as you like to call them. How
No,
successful have you been
it's
reaching
like
out to these
they
people?
like to call themselves. I wouldn't call them.
Okay. Well, you've referred to them as such. How successful have you been in reaching like legitimate scientists?
Well, so far not. But then again, really, I've been up against um, how to say it, a clique, a cabal of right wingers who don't like me and don't want me to
But I
succeed.
don't
But
think they're very popular amongst the scientists either. I don't think their message kind of is
no,
conveyed to
probably
those
no,
scientists.
probably not. Um, and maybe I'll never see while I pride myself in not having a lot of this baggage. I have been known. I find it difficult to not uh, indulge my hostility toward my experience with the um, with the homies, and that while I'm graphic about it, that might
Yeah.
that might be what prevents me from connecting with
I see.
people who think of themselves as being more urbane and that sort of thing. Let alone the kosher folks and the difference there. So, yeah, I might never be able to be popular, but my goals are reasonably limited. I just really, and I'm satisfied that I've achieved them. I've set out a platform that works and makes consistent sense of things. So,
I've seen you're the only person competing with transhumanism, Duginism, all these isms that seem to seem to pollute the landscape of dissident politics.
I don't know too much about transhumanism, but it is. I guess it is something. I maybe it was you who was saying that, or some others were saying that could make
It just means,
straightforward
really
straightforward
honestly,
genetics obsolete. I don't know.
somebody was saying. I wasn't saying that specifically. It does have um, a new potential for that, for
Duke,
making
but
standard
as for
genetics
Dugan,
obsolete.
as for Dugan, he's full of shit. He's anti-racist and all this. I don't take him seriously.
Well,
Yeah, he has. He
he does
has.
have a worldview, though.
Well, yeah, he has some interesting takes. The fourth political
Fourth
theory
political theory, Atlanticist. The Atlanticist
against
liberalism.
against liberalism.
Yeah, the Atlanticist, what he calls America. He borrows a lot of its
against
nomenclature from Spangler.
and isn't it from Schmidt too?
Schmidt as well, yes.
I think that's where he got the.
Heidegger is like his premier philosopher that he models a lot of his understandings from.
I don't think that he understands Heidegger all that well.
Well,
Anyway.
he models a lot of his stuff on Dasein.
Yeah, well, him. I just I've written him off. I don't.
Yeah, a lot of people have. But he's very popular in amongst the people, the so-called thought leaders.
Didn't he? Is he? I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who likes him.
There's people that are more sympathetic towards him. I wouldn't say completely like him, but they definitely. When you hear people say multipolar world, even though this is a general geopolitical term, they typically, ascribe that to. I would ascribe the popularity of that to Dugan in these circles, because some of these people would have never known about
maybe
it.
alt-light people like him.
No, alt-light people actually detest him. When you say alt-light,
do you think it's true what he said? Do you think it's true what he said about Ukrainians, that they're degenerates who deserve to be exterminated?
That's a very sticky subject.
And meeting in Greece.
No, I don't agree with that. But clearly,
you don't agree that he said that, or did?
Well, he probably did say. I don't know if he said that or not. I don't have a specific citation for that, but he probably did. I wouldn't doubt that there is a type of irredentism towards Ukraine and a certain kind of chauvinism towards Ukrainians.
Well, that's disgusting. I can't go along with it.
I don't go along with it either.
I can't. They just.
I know you're very sensitive about the Slavic thing, but the Slavic.
No. I'm sensitive about all nationalisms.
Okay.
It's not sensitive about the Slavic thing.
You think Ukrainians have a legitimate nationalism that's separate from Russia?
Yes, I mean, and it's coming through. But what's really good about it is that sort of the whole world is whether they realize it or not, supporting their ethno-nationalism. I just think the problem is, of course, is that they've got Operation Clean Break operating there with Zelensky in charge, and him calling upon the people to sacrifice their lives in war and property in war against Russia, and that's just absurd. Like Metzger used to say, war is a Jay harvest.
Yeah.
And,
especially this one.
He should have just. I mean, if he was a true Ukrainian man, nationalist, he would have stepped aside and said, "Okay, let Putin install his Lukashenko like puppet, and for a time, and at least our Ukrainian people will survive, and we could fight the long fight to retake the helms of our ethno state. And they should have just not tried to. I don't really know all that much about these eastern regions, but probably should have been willing to sacrifice those, to give those to Putin, and maybe even let them have Mariupol, a bridge to Crimea. And it's a shame they lost that, but if they could hang on to Odessa and Kiev and Lvov, you've got the makings of enough infrastructure and resource.
Do you see how it's being framed in these circles, though? The way it's being framed in these circles, it's being seen as kind of Russia is the sort of champion of traditionalism, and
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, and it's crazy
against NATO and against the UN. That's the way people are framing this entire.
I see Mark Collette doing that. Mark Collette,
Everybody's doing that.
Duke.
Everybody's doing that.
It seems like everybody's doing it. Academic agent.
Everybody's who is doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and Mark Collette, David Duke, academic agent. What's his name? Black Pigeon Speaks. Yeah, on the line. It's really crazy, because I mean, Putin. I mean, you really think this guy's not laced with kosherism? That he's not?
I'm sure every world leader is. That's kind of an.
Well, but him too, and he's like, even if he was, protecting the Orthodox Church, do you think that that's good? That's going to protect us? It's so, yeah. I mean, it's really disappointing that that's stupid, but in a way, I understand it, because America is such torture. It's such torture.
That's where a lot of people are throwing their lot in, is because they hate America. They just hate America outright, and they think that maybe starting over with a new overlord will be better. They'll have a better deal. It's a gambit they're willing to wage.
I understand that, and I was sort of that mindset myself at one time. I was even like a closet sympathizer of Lukashenko at one time. But then when you see a situation where you begin to heal up and see the possibility of normalcy, of ethno-national homeostasis, then and you know enough about the history and where of Russia and Putin and what they're doing now, then you're not inclined to be so naive, is really what it is, or bought off. I don't know. Maybe someone like Nick Fuentes is getting money from.
You don't think some of the other people are not?
Oh yeah, no, I think some of them probably are. Like David Duke, they probably are getting money.
I remember when everyone brushed me off in these circles when I was telling people that there is a potential Russian source that's funding a lot of these more prominent pundits that are within the dissident right. They brushed me off and said that it was a leftist conspiracy theory, or they said that that can't possibly happen. It's people underestimate how far the reach of intelligence agencies and like foreign nationals are on certain dissident culture. It's a cultural battleground that everyone doesn't realize exists. It's definitely going to be utilized for any kind, for private interest, public interest, governmental interest. It's a real thing.
And they've really sold the right wingers on it, like Ramsey Paul was saying, "Oh, Russiagate," as if Putin and the Russian Federation didn't have influence with Donald Trump, and didn't have influence in that.
Well, both sides are being both sides are being controlled, and I don't know how to formulate this kind of dialectic to people, other than people automatically go to sort of, the whale's been poisoned by people like Alex Jones and the rest of these people, boomer type of tards have poisoned the whale where there's no kind of clear, concise discourse on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think I'm satisfied that my platform sorts it out. But there's the thing is that you still got these people buying into this characterology of the left, so they can't bring to
I
bear.
don't think the true left or the true right exist anymore.
Well,
As
well, no,
as
no,
polls,
it's
I mean, but
important.
we'll never agree on that. But
No, no, but you have to agree, because it's like, if you see it the way I'm saying, is that the left, the deathgram of the left is about unionization. So if you have, as long as you have,
when you put it in those terms,
as long
yes.
as you have, yeah, as long as you have a kind of nationalism, you have a kind of union there. But and it's the right wingers and the neoliberals and the liberals. This is the part that a David Duke is not going to bring to bear. This is where our people are complicit in selling us out, whether they're Hunter Biden or Pelosi's son, or uh, um, who was the guy who's the guy from the Mormon guy. It was
Which Mormon? Which Mormon?
ran for president against
Oh
Obama.
yes, yes, I know who you're talking about. Damn, it's escaping me now. Yeah, the
Um,
Mormon guy from Connecticut.
yeah. Um, or of course John Kerry, who's fake Irish, really Jewish, right? So
Yeah,
the the our right wingers um, are necessary to
yeah,
this
Romney.
Romney.
Romney's correct. Yes.
They're necessary to make this the kosher program successful, and of course they don't want. Uh, of course they've got this program against. They got people like Rams Paul and others, and also Freddie Midyard, classic example now, engaged with against this characterology of the left and red caping of postmodernity, because these are the concepts of social organization and advocacy that they don't want us to have. Is what would facilitate our homeostasis, and it takes these people who can be bought off, these right wingers, with their ego stroked with the idea that they're objectively superior and therefore not accountable to our people, or that this is somehow just a natural process and that's the way it is. And basically, liberals and neoliberals are coming from the same place, and they need that. And the liberals will take the licentiousness they need, whereas the right wingers will take the money, and the kosher folks require that in order to uh, continually disrupt our organization, our homeostasis. Um, uh,
Precisely. Can't disagree with you there. The scene is, I think it started out as well intentioned on here, and I think some people just started building up clouts, and there's just this toxic mix of celebrity culture that's just permeated the whole entire world, and they've
well,
observed it, and they've put ascribed politics to it, and that's there's not much you can do to
that's
stop
yeah.
this like trend. It's like just
It takes a few people of goodwill. You can, while someone like you can get some of the harder edged people on board. It's going to take a few like softer types, like some women and so on, to uh, bring
unfortunately that has
to
been
bring a
much
populace.
abused. That's been much abused. You have to find some way to integrate that into the nationalist scene and see and use it in a way that's not exploitive or the way that has sort of been more for the gain of the particular female than the rest of the so-called movement, let's say, because there is
Yeah,
like a
well, I
delicate
mean,
line you have
this
to walk
this
with that.
this 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 Zedez lady, she apparently understood what I was saying when I talked about
Okay.
unionization and
I'm
social
definitely not
equity.
against it.
Um,
I'm just apprehensive about it because once this becomes the forefront, you have your own complexities and difficulties with integrating like females into this type of space other than being I don't want to be since it's your stream I want to be kind of delicate about what I would say, but you know you don't want them to take over the entire and run the stream their kind of way. There has to be a delicate kind
no,
of balance between masculine and feminine.
I don't think that they would. I mean, I wouldn't let that happen. Not
All right,
here.
not your particular. I'm just saying in general. In general, when I speak, I'm speaking in generalities. Just something I've seen, happen over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Maybe
don't want to throw anybody, but there's
maybe they
particular,
would. Yeah, maybe they would go on there and like and then sort of
well,
branch
pitting
up the
people against
terms.
one another. Maybe they fancy somebody over somebody else. There's just a lot of like emotional complexities that come with like integrating them into the scene. And already, as you know, it's just rife with people that are egomaniacal and
Absolutely.
people with certain kind of ranges of narcissism, which I think you have to have to limited degrees to even care or want to preserve your race. That's the
Well,
conclusion I've kind
I
of
heard you
come
talking
to.
about that, and I agree with that. There's a big problem with there of just white people just like really being
I mean,
too
they're overly
too selfish,
narcissistic to their
too
to
selfish and egomaniacal, and to do this.
and to the point though that it's detrimental. I understand a little bit of ego, a little bit of narcissism, and
Yeah,
even a little bit of sociopathy is like granted, but the amount is giving them delusions. It's and when with these echo chambers, you're able to feed your delusions even more so, just
I
because you
suppose,
get a
but
little
they
bit of
should begin to
popularity in a
ask
niche. Go ahead.
ultimately
Sorry.
who are you doing it for? You're going to destroy your audience. It's like, I mean, who are you doing it for?
But it seems folly after folly, they never destroy themselves or their audience. Like people overlook a lot of their flaws if they're charismatic enough.
Well, at this point, I'm not, I'm simply, I don't have time to worry about what other people are doing wrong.
I understand. I understand. This is not to
Too
be
much.
critical of you or anybody, on this
No, I didn't
podcast.
think you were.
Just general observations.
And uh,
I'm kind of bored with the racial scene myself. I looked into more other things like cybernetics and stuff like intelligence agencies. I've looked into stuff like that, which has
well,
been
cybernetics
more.
is okay, but it's a bit the problem with
I'm not saying I
cybernetics.
endorse it. I'm just looking at the
No, it's
history of
it's
it.
it's good stuff, but it's a bit it's a bit too mechanical. Like it's
Okay.
sub praxis, uh, and it does work. I mean, this balancing when I come upon a situation where and somebody's really nice to me, I can pretty much guess that the next time that I see them, they're going to be an asshole. It just, there's just this balancing effect that
Yeah.
seems pervasive, and it's cybernetic. I'm sure.
But more or less, my interest in cybernetics and technology has been how people integrate with it, how even like race coincides with technology and social
Well,
media.
well, you
That's
might be
been
able to
more
do
my
something with
interest
that.
as of lately.
You might be able to do something with that, and that's cool. I
Maybe
um,
right now I'm
but
surfacing.
one thing that while I've been critical of Joel Davis saying that that him and I've been asking do him and Richard Spencer want to suck Jewish cock, or would they prefer to take it up the
By
ass?
the way, I want to say, guys, that the views of Daniel do not necessarily reflect that of Cybernetic Order Lab and any subsidiaries and any of his live streams or corporations, etc.
Okay,
Just legal speak.
it's like little boilerplate there.
Yeah.
I liked what he said in conversation with Academic Agent that um, a lot of these elitists who are fucking us over probably think that they're doing good, that they're
I kind of
uh,
disagree with that.
I yeah, well, some of them. I think that some of them are just cynical and selfish. But I think that some, well, maybe not a lot, but I think that some of them actually might be thinking that they're doing good.
Which particular elitists are we talking about? Because we have to frame it. The problem I have when we have these conversations is nobody frames it exactly. Who are we talking about when we're talking
Well,
about
I don't.
elitists?
Yeah, I don't. I'm really bad with examples,
Not
but
you, but I'm saying even in general, people think there's just general broad category of like elites. Like there are multiple different types of elites in different subsectors. I
well,
mean, there.
I don't have any ready examples, but I've just
Well, what
felt
about
this.
Peter Thiel or like some of those other people that have kind of lots of leverage, lots of political leverage?
Well, I don't know that he's exactly. I don't know if he is exactly selling us out. Maybe he is.
He seems to
Um,
be a rather elusive, ambiguous type of character, from what I see.
Why I don't think that I don't think that he is. He views the kosher
But I
folk
didn't
with.
mean to take away from the conversation. You were making a critique. I just want to know exactly what
I no.
categorically we
What I
mean
want to
by
say is that
elites.
this is it's just it's an elaboration that I think is I like it because it's challenging. It's theoretically challenging, and I think it's true that some of these leaders, because I've been pretty much of the focus that these people are selfish, disingenuous, or at best naive rats
I don't think
who are
naivete. I don't think you can. You're not
well, no,
acquitted from
and
naivete.
the masses might be naive, but the elitists are more disingenuous.
You can't be.
The elites are more disingenuous in terms of what they're saying in order to sell us out. But some of them, I think, some of them might be, thinking that they're doing good, and which would make them act with more conviction, and it would be almost more difficult of that mindset to take them on.
Hmm.
Anyway, it doesn't it doesn't contradict this platform. It only adds a bit of elaboration and something to consider.
I don't get this love affair that people have of the elites, though, in some of these circles. That some of the neo-reactionary circles, they tend to think and elevate the elites up to the highest moral aptitudes. They tend to think these people have the best interest of of humanity in their hands. I
Well, I sure
just
don't think that, but
a lot of them do. A lot
I
of
don't
them
like
think
I don't even
also.
like calling them elites. I like
Well, yeah,
calling
I
them
understand. I
elite.
just use that for
I call
general.
them elitists.
Well, I just use that for a general purposes.
Yeah,
So
I
people
know what you
understand
mean.
clear
I,
definitions.
I was just clarifying that I like to call them elitists because they think that they are above us, or above it all, above accountability, and
Which
that's
they are in many cases.
well, I mean, I guess they are, but they shouldn't be.
They
And
shouldn't be, no, but I mean, another glaring problem with this, I would say, the scene is there's really no kind of accountability in itself. There's no code. There's no system of honor.
well,
Um, that's
that's because we don't have the structuring
yeah, we don't have the
you,
infrastructure to enforce that.
we don't have the structuring that unionization would provide. And the good thing about unionization is that this it doesn't require a psychological transformation and great religious inspiration to participate. It could even be as like James STFU, Jimmy the Greek says, like he was criticizing me. Well, he said, no, people respond to incentives. Well, unionization will provide for the incentives and protect people against exploitation from elites. That's what it does.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's the rebut to his criticism. Now, Stephen J. James is saying women are literally insane 2 weeks out of every month. Maybe a few days. There is something to that. The PMS. They said, what's the difference between a terrorist and a woman with PMS? Is that you can reason with the terrorist. And it's true that they can be crazy at that time.
Well, I wish you best of luck on your project and your pursuits.
Okay, thanks for
And
talking. So you're checking out now.
I'm
Okay.
not gonna necessarily going to check out unless like you want to end it. But yeah, I think I'm winding down here. But yeah, it was a
Well,
nice conversation.
I was hoping, like I said, I had said
Didn't
about
mean
this.
to intrude or interrupt if I
You
was
didn't
doing
you
so.
didn't intrude. You're fine, and I appreciate it. Um, no problem. And
Contrary to what people say, I'm not self-absorbed or inconsiderate of others. It's a lot of it's theatrics. You have to put on a show when you're
well,
on the other
I mean,
side of.
no, you seem to be getting better and better. I mean, you're always good, but now you're even better.
You
So,
have to put on a little bit of a show when you're on the other side of the spectrum. Not the autistic spectrum, of course, but when you're on the other side of the political extremes, you have to live up to it.
well, I'm
And
not capable of doing. I'm not capable
I
of
get
doing
it.
your
I get it.
wild man show.
Some
You're
people
like
are cut
cowboy
from
out
a
there,
different cloth.
and yeah, it's like you're really that like
I've moved in a more serious
that
direction.
frontiersman mentality. You guys are just like too like
I've moved in a more serious
robust.
direction. I've moved in a more serious direction, but I think people are never going to let me outlive a lot of my reputation precedes me, which a lot of that came from that whole entire 2016 milieu when there was like a lot of rage, a lot of animosity towards like the establishment, and sometimes
Well,
it manifests itself in like healthy ways, and sometimes it's self-destructive, and sometimes it's in a rather, I would say you could say toxic kind of way, or sometimes
I've
it's
been
just
there.
energetic.
Yeah, well, I've been there, and believe me, like I was saying earlier in the show, um,
We
you
need
know,
a little bit of
these
catharsis.
people can save the world. And having said that, there was a time when I wouldn't have cared if the world were to be blown up. I was so
Yeah.
disgusted
Sometimes
at
it
it.
veers into nihilism as well, which is what I've seen. A lot of it is happening in, like, I would say, the more, I hate the term, but the more Wignat type of social climate has typically manifested itself in unhealthy nihilism. You could say
Well,
that maybe that's a
I wasn't
combination
just.
of low IQ and self destructiveness or bad parenting, or even some cases, maybe bad genetics. I don't know. I just know that it is there.
Or maybe even good genetic, reacting insanely to an insane situation, or sanely, the insane situation makes them insane. Maybe it's not even bad genetics. I I gravitated towards Metzger in 2009. Through this despair. Uh, so I totally understand it. I understand these people who just like find uh, America untenable, and
Well, not
the
only
attack,
that, you find
attacks
there's
on our
nothing really at the core
and the
of
attacks of
America.
anti-racism just unbearable, and the betrayal of our people unbearable. So, but he was a good coach through that. But one thing that I think that has to be uh, borne in
I was
mind
blessed to talk to
when
Metzger as
considering
well.
one thing that has to be borne in mind when considering Metzger's perspective is that he was him and the order and like that were functioning at a time when we had no voice whatsoever. The media was completely controlled. I mean,
Yeah, most people don't frame it in that manner.
if you think it's bad now, if you think
Yeah.
if you then you should have been around when there was three networks, TV stations, controlled radio, controlled newspapers. You had no way to talk back. There was no interaction. There was just you being told, that you were shit because you're white and that you should
If
die.
they aired you, you were considered a spectacle, a day on daytime television. That's where basically the
Yeah,
white
like
plight was
Jerry
relegated to.
Springer or something. Yeah,
Yeah, it was relegated to Jerry Springer and daytime television.
like that. So I mean,
Well, that's why I think
And,
it
and
is. That's,
but I
go ahead. Sorry.
here's what I wanted to say is that I think that the calls for violent action to the point where it's not going to do anything and but destroy yourself and stigmatize your cause is an expression of the lack of voice that of Metzger's generation. And so I think that now that we do have the capacity to talk, that we should be focused on fighting the long fight. Just like this is the same thing that I advised to the Ukrainian nationalists.
Well, there's a bit of urgency in a lot of white nationalists. They think that the white race is going to go extinct within a certain time frame. So there's a lot of urgency.
Well, I understand the urgency, but then
on the horizon.
the thing to do is what I'm prescribing here: that to join the union, to union up, and this is how we protect ourselves. And immediately, 40 years it was going to take generations. Well, this is something that we can do immediately in the protection of our genetic interests. So,
have you ever considered speaking to Freud?
I would talk to him. I don't know if
be more more reasonable of like the mainstream.
He's very intelligent. He's got some very. I don't know if he would talk to me. You know, I'm sure that I'm on a blackball list for most of these guys. I have been. You know, like I said, I'm triggered when they say certain things. You know me, so and I can be quite vicious in my criticisms. Like I will say, you know, who sucked more cock? Is it Conop's girlfriend or Millennial Woes or Greg Johnson? You know, it's like when people get on when they espouse something that I think is really to our detriment, I will, you know, I'll hit them hard.
This is kind of why we do kind of still need strict criteria, and while still remaining, I guess, some amount of flexibility, non-rigidness, because it does kind of weed out a lot of these I would say elitist elements that are only intended for their own purposes. I don't mind people being an elitist or, you know, exuding that type of behavior, that type of attitude. The problem is I see is a lot of people do it for their own self-interested sort of progress instead of for progress of like Europeans.
Yeah, well, that's why I was eager to start the show off, like I said, to saying that, you know, while I've been critical of like someone like Joel Davis and even Keith Woods to an extent, I when they have something right, I'm gonna say it. I'm not. It's not about. I'm not against them.
They would only extend that courtesy.
I'm not against. They probably. That's the problem. For some reason, so far they won't. Even Josh Neal, for some reason, you know, like is subscribing to the blacklist of me, whereas he would talk to me at one time. But that's why.
Grata, huh?
Kind of, and I don't care. You know, it's a tautology because people who reject me are you know, to me, they can't have good reasons. I can go down the list of reasons that they give, and I don't accept any of them. But that's again, that's where I was eager to start the show off by saying that by acknowledging some good points that Joel Davis makes or Keith Woods makes, because I'm not. It's, you know, or David Duke for that matter. This is not about competing against personalities. It's about competing to get the platform correct, the theoretical worldview correct for me.
Well, one thing's for sure: white liberals and the white elite, or if they do still exist, are kind of a tough nut to crack. That's for sure.
Yeah, but come back to this. I know you disagreed to begin with, but think about it for a second. How much tougher they're going to be if they really think that they're doing good, and that you.
I see you're falling in the moral paradigm, saying that
no. I'm not, because that's not basically. This is. It's a new toy that I'm playing with because I haven't been in the habit of thinking that. I've been thinking of like.
It's possible. I mean,
I'm thinking of objectivism of the right wing as an escape from guilt, from being guilted, and, you know, trying to find pure warrant, so that they're not, subject to the kosher casuistry and rhetoric and sophistry.
If you listen to people like Charles Murray and even Paul Fussell and some of the other kind of academics have tried to examine this issue, it seems more or less the type of moral paradigm that a lot of the elites or people in the upper middle class or kind of frame is kind of fake. It's kind of a pseudo moral framework that they've in and kind of enveloped themselves into naturally
Yeah,
kind of ascribe sort of virtues that are non-existent really, but they still uphold. And maybe that I don't. Maybe that
yeah.
is like an extension of a
It's
healthy.
probably the vapors of Christianity.
Yeah, it is. A lot of it is residual Christianity, but I wonder if that's like kind of well-meaning, kind of intrinsic value that is within their cultural milieu, or whether it's kind of artificial.
Like I said,
I don't
yeah, yeah.
know
There's no escaping.
because they don't extend that
There's no
to like
escaping
lower
moral.
class.
It's no pure escape of moral concerns. You have to have
What I mean
some.
by that, and I hate to be bring class in this, but a lot of those people do not ascribe the same type of virtues that they do to people in the inner city or non-white set are starving in third world countries to also places like West Virginia or
Well,
Eastern
I
Kentucky.
think you make a
They don't
very
care
good
about
point.
those
Actually,
people.
I think you make actually a very good point, and that seems to be what's operating. That there's kind of like a feudalism, but it's not. But it's a reverse feudalism. They're actually providing giving better uh, a break to the blacks and the
Yes,
un,
that's what I
and
mean.
unrich to where they have a different what did they say, they have different rules that they're
Different
adhering
rules
to.
for like I'd say lower class whites that just kill over and die from opiate overdoses and heroin overdoses.
Right.
Um,
We
they
can go to hell.
yeah, they don't care about those particular people, and I don't know whether that's because the children of these particular groups might be competition to break sort of the ivory tower hegemony, or whether it's just they
Yeah,
just don't
I think right.
extend that kind of moral um,
That's
security
def-
to
that
other
sounds like
groups.
a big part of it, but that's not everything. But what geneticist Graham Lister was saying at Majority Rights, that in liberalism, in a liberal context, siblicide is actually a winning move. Uh, so
Okay,
yeah, I mean, um, and that creates a problem to deal with
I mean I understand there's going to be
for
winners and
straightforward
losers.
ethnic genetic interests.
I understand
There's
there
that
will be
consideration,
genetic winners, there will be
but
genetic losers.
but there's the context, which the social context, which the scientific sort are can be naive to, which the kosher folks are not. This hermeneutic realm that they're influencing and misdirecting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you see what Mearsheimer and Timothy Snyder and Stephen Kotkin are saying in response to the war, that we're on the side of democracy, and Kotkin will even use the word correctivity with that. But
Oh, they're still adhering to the Straussian messianism. I see.
well, here's the thing: is that uh, as I see it, they're red caping this idea of democratic correctivity, which comes from the pragmatists like James and Dewey, of democratic correctivity, to where they are, as a red cape typically would do, they're extending it to absurdity, to where they will, if you are Tony Blair, you will invite new voters in if you have to, in order to make the Labor Party win indefinitely. Or if you are uh, um, Joe Biden, you will open up the borders and allow for and even illegal immigrants to vote. So just extending the franchise indefinitely, perverting the notion, whereas how it should function as a paradigmatic conservative idea for ethno-nationalism would be limited franchise to those who understand, who can pass certain tests and know that the borders are not up for vote, our boundaries are not up for vote, and it's a matter of certain age and experience and competence, so that you could have some sort of quote democratic input, so that you could function in correctivity to maintain our homeostasis. Now, the idea of voting is a bit clumsy of itself. It's sort of a quantitative thing that has to be looked into, but that's the general idea of correctivity. How they're perverting it, and this is what they do. They take a good idea and they pervert it. That's what a red cape is. And they misrepresent it to us so that it turns our people off, so that they'll say, well,
from what I
there
understand,
should only be a dictator.
From what I understand, their worldview is like kind of an extension of like Leo Strauss, right? Straussian sort of geopolitics.
Whose worldview?
Leo, the people you mentioned, it sounds like neocon. Yeah, it sounds like neocons, neoconservatives.
They probably, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he's definitely influence on the neocons.
Along with Strauss. I hate to just name drop, but I mean that the whole
thing
was kind of
it's an important name.
A lot of it was like ascribed to like messianism. Sorry, if I mispronounced that.
Well, you're right that it's traceable to the interests of kosher folks and their disruption of our homeostasis. That's what's behind it, for sure.
And that's the way it's framed. It's framed as America has to be the savior. America has to encompass these higher ideals and spread it across the globe under the auspices of, I would even say, kind of neo-imperialism.
It isn't. It
wanted to go that route.
Well, it is, but it's really, what's the word? Not hijacked.
Co-opted.
Not co-opted exactly. Well, yeah, it is co-opted, but there's that biological word, the extended phenotype.
Okay. Yes.
It's like an extended phenotype of their imperialist interests.
Saying phenotype in this case is not just physical characteristics, but also kind of cultural characteristics.
Right.
Okay.
It's maybe it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's kind of like that. Maybe co-opt is better, but yeah, co-opt is more accurate, I would say, in this case.
Well, they've been able to disguise this and like moral kind of higher ideals and notions.
Well, you can understand, but you can understand how people would not see it, because there is this crypsis that they frequently look like us. Some of their patterns are discernible, but they frequently look like us. And who the hell? I mean, what sane person would say, why would they do this? I
understand completely why they do that. I didn't for a long time.
You understand it. You understand, but what a normal person coming to this, myself too, in the beginning, like, why the fuck would they do this? And to us, and it's just to where I would even say of someone like those the Allies are frequently criticized.
I would say
the Allies are, Churchill and Roosevelt are frequently, the great bogeys of the WN. But I could even see how someone like Churchill would say, like, once we get them Israel and save them from this, why the hell would they not be grateful? Or that's what a normal you would expect them to act like you would act.
I mean, it
Right?
seems like an ethno cult. You know how cults function? That's what it seems like to me. It seems like to me they've mastered sort of years and years of being under a cult like type of trance, and they've integrated a lot of their
It's deeper than that.
ethnics.
It goes right to their genetics,
Well, probably, most likely.
and
I'm just saying at surface level. That's how
and
you
they're
can
and
kind of
they're
understand it.
and they're and they're experts at knowing how to organize themselves and others and build coalitions, and by the same token to
Could,
disrupt
no, here's a question though.
and
Like,
to
could
disrupt
the
our organization and coalitions.
well, here's a
So
question. Could,
you asked me why I'm not popular. That's one of the reasons. Is because they
okay,
don't, especially after 2008 and their ascension to greater hegemony in those eight to ten niches of power and influence. They have to make the left into their enemies so that people don't organize, because
well,
that's the way
friend enemy distinction.
that's the way they organize. I don't whatever to organize against people who are screwing you over, and I can see this, and um, I've diagnosed it correctly, and so of course people like are not going to who are on board with their being on top and trying to co-opt right-wing assistance, as which is what they're trying to do, the Godfrey perspective, are going to try to bury my voice.
You think
Bury
Gottlieb is behind it?
huh?
Gottlieb, you think he's behind it?
You mean Gottfried?
Sorry, Gottfried. Yeah.
Um, not alone, but he's definitely of that perspective, um, and he's being apparently very persuasive to most of these people that I was talking about before of the right wing
Everybody needs their
view him as being on our side, and they're incredibly naive.
everybody wants their based Jew.
As I said, I tried to make the point. You think that Godfried's on our side, and then who do they have on Cato Godfried's platform? This Halsey English guy who's saying that he doesn't care if Putin nukes Ukraine off the face of the earth. Literally said that.
Interesting.
He said because they don't care.
But I wanted to bring up this.
When Zelensky wants to bring NATO into World War III because he doesn't care. What's his name? Who's the Jewish oligarch? Kordakovsky says that if we don't stop Putin there, if we don't fight him there, he's gonna go to the next European nation because Putin's a bully and they only know power. Well, that's nonsense. That's nonsense because we do have that angle figured out. The United States and Europe is powerful enough to stand up to Putin. So that it doesn't have to be taken on in Ukraine. Tell this clown Zelensky to step down. Let Putin put in his puppet like Lukashenko for a time. Humor him. Save lives and infrastructure. And because I've been to Belarus with the Russian puppet Lukashenko, I've been there many times, and it's okay if you try to take on Lukashenko, he will come down on you. He's killed 10 to 25 people. I've met people who have been beaten for hours for protesting his fake elections. There's some draconian laws there, but as long as you don't do that, for the time being, you survive as Belarusian people, distinct from Russians. They're like 88% of the population, Belarusians are. And you survive as a people for a time in a way that you wouldn't even if you were part of the West, more integrated for the West. And then you can survive to actually take over your ethno-nation in a way that Mearsheimer and Timothy Snyder and Stephen Kotkin are not auguring.
here's a point I wanted to address when you were talking about crypsis and like sort of um, maybe it's convergent sort of it's this divergent sort of evolutionary types of processes that both Europeans and this particular group underwent that made it altered it and made it different. But it seemed to me that Europeans never had any kind of defense against this type of intrusion, and I think that's why they've suffered. And they don't understand sort of this process. This process over and over again has happened in throughout European history.
Well, they've not had. We haven't had sufficient defense. We especially probably a little bit more, and I think this is exaggerated, but a bit more in our northern Europeans. We are like a naive species being invaded by an invasive species, and we have. Clerk Maxwell used the metaphor of Manichaean devils and Augustinian devils, and we are evolved, as particularly a bit more so. This is exaggerated because all Europeans are like this. We are evolved to more to deal with the challenges of nature than competing tribes, and so we value those, a scientific objectivist outlook, but the problem is that leaves us naive to people who are functioning with an evolution evolved in a context where they're competing against other tribes like the Middle Easterners are, like the Muslims and the Jews are. So they develop a Manichaean, they develop abilities to deal with Manichaean devils, that is, trickster devils of other people, and they develop trickery of their own, and they're adroit, whereas we are more attuned to dealing with straightforward natural challenges. And so there is that problem that we are a bit naive and susceptible as such. But where MacDonald and some of the others, and Freud and Midyard and some of the others, are exaggerating the bit, they're drawing the distinction between Northern and Southern Europeans too strongly, because Southern Europeans are pretty individualistic too. Maybe not as much, maybe a bit more ethnocentric, maybe a tiny bit less naive, but they're naive. They're they don't express it in the best way. It tends to be in a corrupt kind of mafioso kind of way.
Yeah, I was going to say that they seem to have a
it's not,
Levantine type of structure there, and some of their criminal syndicates seem to exhibit a type of Levantine kind of structure that you sometimes see
yeah, and
with the Middle Easterners and with the Jews.
but it's worse even in a way because it's more about money, and it's not even about ethnic genetic interests.
Yeah.
So it's not. What I mean to say is that when I'm describing some of this hypothesis of the problems of naivety in the North, I don't want it to be taken as if I'm complimenting the Southerners, as if they are so much more effective.
No one's taking it that way.
But also I have to say is that the Southerners are too individualistic as well. I wish they were more ethnocentric. They're not nearly enough. They're susceptible to the same bullshit, the same anti-racist bullshit.
That doesn't this circle back kind of to the initial sort of question we had about the elites in a way, because it seems like over the periods of time the elites have sold out a lot of the populace for gain.
Look what the Catholic Church did. It was a
well, not just Catholic Church, the monarchy as well allowed sort of the Jews to come in and to serve as middlemen.
I just let's be careful about the language. Try to use kosher folk or something like that.
When I say this, I'm saying this in a historical context. I'm not saying this is
something
derogatory.
You didn't say anything wrong, but you know it.
I get it. Well, let's just say they allow intermediates to come in and serve as sort of we could say the cat's paw for their deeds and dealings with sort of the middle sort of the middle and lower classes and the
Are you talking,
feudalistic times.
the merchant class thing?
Yes, the merchant class thing, the
I
mercantile
think there is
class thing.
something to that. I don't. Was it Avilo that's talking about that? The merchant class, the warrior class, and the priestly class, and the
Well, when I say that, I'm talking about
artist class.
partly when we first interacted. Let's just say northern, and I will exclude Rome in that context. But when we interacted, for what I've read of medieval Europe and up until sort of the Enlightenment period, it seems to me like there was this kind of there was this antagonism towards these foreigners and these intermediates within Europe itself. But it does seem like the elites, including the Catholic Church, as you mentioned, typically favored them and even protected them because they had a sort of commercial interest
Oh
in the
yeah,
lands.
that makes perfect sense.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying that this mostly came from the elites. I'm not arguing that there will never be an elite or whatever. I'm not framing
Well,
it in a
that's the
class
way. Well, that's
conflict.
the way it operates. That's the way it operates. You get these elitists, which what I'm calling right wingers and neoliberals and liberals, who are selling us out uh, in tandem with the kosher folks. That's the way it works.
And what I'm
Those are
saying
like
is we can't
those
confide
are
in
the first
them.
2 points in critique, definitely.
We
But you
can't.
have, but these right wingers are not calling it. They're not paying enough attention. They only focusing on the kosher folks. They're not paying attention to uh, our traders and how
Well, I
they
agree with
function.
that. That's been my gripe with a lot of the WNs and a lot of the, as you know, I've been I have caused quite a contention with a lot of WNs, saying that you need to not just focus on these particular groups that are outsiders and are natural antagonists, but you need to also look internally to, I would say, even to white consciousness to see what moral attributes has made whites precept susceptible to interlopers and to intermediates.
You know, and there are different factors that
And
are.
they don't like that. They don't like that the fact that that's too much a complex narrative for a
Well, the
lot
big,
of.
but and it's not even all that
It's
complex. But
not, but
the
they say
the
they
biggest
say
rhubarb
that.
about that
Go
was
ahead.
happened between Tan Staffel and Kevin McDonald and you know in regard to it. And I think that um, Ken was a bit overly focused in his logical ability and a bit overly sensitive and um,
What I'm saying is we need to provide a counter to these antagonist groups. We need to provide a counter so that this doesn't keep continually happening over and over again, like the cycles of history. That's what I've argued with people. There needs to be some type of praxis or some type of defensive, whether it be an ideological or a physical.
well,
Um,
that's what I'm saying. The unionization in theory
yeah.
and in practice can do that. And then with that, some of the more beautiful expressions of religion and so on and stories of heroism and
Yes.
will correspond with that. But it's very practical. But this is why this is at the essence of why they don't want us. Why they have us arguing against the left because that's in the depth grammar of the left is unionization and coalitions building on unionization. It's not about equality, inequality.
I
Uh,
used to disagree with you, but I'm starting to see what you're saying now.
well, I'm
But I
glad
think
because it
that's
makes
more
sense.
of like laziness on the part of people that are in, I would say, whatever you want to call this
Oh,
dissident WN community. It's more laziness. It's more
well,
intellectual
it's
laziness.
it's late. Yeah, it's late. You want to take a coloring. You're handed a coloring book, a kosher coloring book, and they're just like
Yeah, people want
color the
direct,
colors.
paint by numbers types of sequences and scenarios when they
And that's what
get
they
into
had.
this.
And they've fed that to these memes and this marketing of the characterology of the left to people like Mike
Which
Enoch and
works. It
TRS
works.
And they're all doing it. They're all like, oh, the left doesn't deal with nature. The left doesn't deal with facts. The left doesn't deal with truth. There's this giant ogre, the left, right? And we're only dealing with facts and truth. Well, we don't. It's not. They've long associated white identity with right wing and far right for a reason. Yeah. They want us to react as like to be into these objectivist purity spirals, which narrows accountability, and say, oh, we only care about truth. And it's like, this is ridiculous.
Ironically,
the postmodern project is supposed to do is reconstruct the Aristotelian perspective of our group outlook, our relative perspective, our relative interests. And the difference between this marketing program is that that's the calibration. We're not saying that we do deal with facts. We do correspond with nature. We do deal with truth. But these quests are the feedback. They are to be gauged against the calibration of our relative interests. It's our relative interests which are the default worldview, not the truth. We're not living to pursue pure truth. We're living for ourselves, for our people, for the people that we care about, first of all. But we have to deal with the truth because or else. So
unfortunately, it's the way you package it.
But they're trying to say, in this characterology, they're trying to say that a left view doesn't deal with truth. Well, ours would. Our left ethno-national view, of course, would deal with truth, but that would be the feedback to the calibration. It would not be our primary mode. You don't walk around being objective and detached from your interests and your relative concerns. That's ridiculous. But that's how ridiculous. That's how stupid these right wingers are. And they're all buying into it.
Yeah.
And the things that, a lot of them are really, really smart. They're really, really logical, but they've kind of like they're way up in their heads, and they're unhinged from these epistemological foundations, the foundation of praxis, what Aristotle would call praxis.
Yeah.
And the kind of balance, cybernetic balance that would provide for homeostasis, the human ecology, and the unionization that would close off the holes, the vulnerabilities that the YKW always find to subvert and misdirect us, to misdirect our people. Like Christianity, you just convert to Christianity and you're a member of our group, right? Well, bullshit. It's like, you can't convert to our genetics.
More people are going to be turning that in this day and age because there's so much alienation and so much, so much like I would say hollowness in the modern world. They're going to be turning to that because it's a ready-made community. And it's a place where they can find a wife, a girlfriend, or whatever as well. That's going to be more enticing to a lot of dissidents.
Well, some and others are going to realize that the text is absurd, and there's enough people. Most people are not Christians and not going to be Christians. And you asked me before, who's my audience? Well,
more ethno-nationalists are Christians.
I'm not trying to. I don't want to argue with Christians. I'm not interested.
I get that. I'm just saying that more ethno-nationalists are typically more inclined, I would say, towards some type of theism.
Well, I'm not atheistic either. I believe that
I get that
our religion should be about our patterns where we are at our best, as have as carrying on from our forefathers, and then through to our legacy, our children. And so I favor a new religiosity, and that's about that begins with our people and defending our people. Not even paganism, because I'm not satisfied with that kind of you know trying to reconstruct truth. Freudy Midyard was saying that he's a pagan, and like you're either something's either true or not. Well, I mean, are these pagan gods true? I don't favor going back to um, a state of ignorance that we've moved beyond. Um, anyway, so yeah, no, I'm not anti-religion. I'm anti that religion, and I lost I lost my track. So where was I? I forget.
You were talking about like I think initially we're talking about like sort of building a consistent sort of framework for ethno nationalism
Oh yeah, yeah.
doesn't
Thank
pertain to
you.
left or right
That
certain
did it.
paradigms,
It does. Yeah. The thing is that um,
not falling in the
it just
dialectical trap that a lot of people set up for themselves.
no. It's not, I mean, I don't. That's not exactly what I'm saying. Is that
Oh, okay.
what I am talking about is that I'm more concerned with people who already understand
All right, I get it. Yeah.
the pitfalls of Christianity, and the need, who recognize, have some sense of the need for a new moral order, a new mor- a new a new moral order, one that serves us as a people and protects us as a people. And it's that's a big project,
Yeah.
that's the kind of people that I want to deal with. I don't want to argue with Christians. They've given me a really hard time. People like Matt Parrott have been a huge obstruction to me. I was asked who's trying to bury me. Well, he's one example. Um, and for the sake of Christianity, or and his bureaucratic ego. Um, so I mean, he's been explicitly against the DNA Nations project.
Hmm.
And I don't see any excuse. Literally said thinks it's wrong at every turn. I find him absurd, and he's in cahoots with that with Josh Neal and that Imperium Press stuff. And these guys are like kind of in the old Regnery Circus mold of right wing, which is kind of like in strange cahoots with German Jewry. Uh, it's an odd blend, and this is a perspective which has been hostile to me, definitely.
Regnery, of course, goes back to the Pioneer Foundation and to, I believe, also
CIA.
Cardo. Yeah, CIA as well. I've learned a lot. You know anything about? I don't want to veer off the topic. Do you know intelligence
No, it's
agencies
okay.
did co-op a lot of fascists and national socialists during that time, and it did. I think it was destructive.
Yeah.
It was destructive to Europe, and it kind of confused things a little bit. And I think unfortunately, a lot of white nationalists itself has been sort of a false paradigm that's been hoisted about on the American scene. I've discovered that it's been rather unpleasant for me to discover that from looking into various different historical sources, understanding the
Oh yes.
period post World War II up until I would say the 1960s. There was quite of a and going into even like the 80s.
Yes.
There does seem like a concerted effort by intelligence agencies to co-op a lot of the far right
With
and
William F.
to
Buckley.
and
Yeah.
to formulate it in its own sort of
Kosher,
paradigmatic.
kosher friendly
Yeah,
terms.
they're more kind of like, I wouldn't even say kosher. I would say just it was a diversionary tactic. That you utilized,
But
and I've learned that.
it's kosher and it's in the paleoconservative form. It was kosher friendly for sure because that's a fusionism of Judeo Christianity and Enlightenment values, which
Mhm.
is very kind of conventional from an American perspective, but also useful to the kosher folks as a false opposition. Definitely, that's where
We have to be careful with
that's where
false.
Sam Francis was coming from. That's where Pat Buchanan was coming from. That's where Paul Gottfried was coming from, and Joe Sobran too was a little bit better, but still, he eventually getting drummed out because, as he said, it used to be an anti-Semite was someone who didn't like the kosher folks. Now it's someone who the kosher folks don't like. But anyway, yeah, and then that once the likes of Paul Gottfried saw that the neocons had gone too far, had seen that the Frankfurt school had gone too far, was beginning to intersect, and finally the Austrian school with its boom bust cycle and its magic hand had culminated in 2008 with their achieving greater hegemony than ever. So how does someone like Paul Gottfried and David Horowitz control the backlash? Well, they Paul Gottfried says, well, we revise paleoconservatism, add a few more tents into the tentosphere with the alt-right, and then which has a neo-Nazi tent, a kosher tent, a Christian tent, and then we take that and we move into that blows up with Charlottesville, and then that moves on to the dissident right, which is pretty much the same cast of characters and what they all have in common. And Frody Midyard even said this in his last podcast. They all have in common is what they're against, and they're basically adopting some sort of social stigma. That's the common factor, and as our enemies would have it. And so yeah, that's the way they're orchestrating things. Prior to 2008, you didn't hear people criticizing the left. It was a rarity. Pretty much they criticized political correctness, liberalism, like that.
Yeah.
So that they handed everybody their coloring books, and they're very comfortable with that. There's Millennial Woes, who is completely indignant with me. Take my link off your platform. I don't want anything to do with you when you criticize my friend Vivian Veritas. The truth will live. How dare you say that she shouldn't be able to define our terms for us? She's a sweet kosher lady, my friend, my dear friend, who I talk to every day. Or literally saying this is Millennial Woes, millennial cocksucker.
Wow.
I mean, so I guess for him it's a matter of e-celebrity. He knows that by playing this game, this characterology of the left, that he can be a prominent voice, and that's not a good reason. It's like that's not a good reason to do that. But Frody Midyard listed him as number 4 in terms of like, oh, we've got our cognitive elite now. We have Greg Johnson, we have Ricardo Duchesne, we have Kevin McDonald, and we have Millennial Woes. Can you imagine adding Millennial Woes to that list?
Duchesne and Kevin McDonald, I think, deserve to be on there.
Yeah, and so does Greg Johnson. But Millennial Woes? Give me a break. He said, I said, oh, Millennial Woes, he adds normalcy to it all. Normal? This guy who can't even, he's literally said that he's had sex with so many men that he can't even remember how many and their names.
Nice.
And Freddie Midyard is calling this guy normal.
Well, this wouldn't be the first time there was such people as that are in these circles.
Well, like who's given more blowjobs? Is it Millennial Woes or Greg Johnson or Con Op's girlfriend?
Oh man, like I said, this is a controversial stream that I happen to be involved in.
That's all right. You're not exactly well. You're known to be.
Well, I was trying to like play it different these days.
Well, you did. No, you did. You're actually very PG.
Yeah, on this
stream,
yes.
I appreciate it. It was excellent. I didn't know if you'd be able to do that.
Well, of course I can. I mean, of course.
Well, I don't know. I think that demonstrates skill. Really, really valuable.
It depends what setting I'm in. I'm kind of like Alexander Dugan. I change whatever setting I'm in.
Okay. Well, I think
whatever kind of social mores I have mores I have to like fit myself into, I can.
Well, I'm come to the position that like again, what I was saying about Metzger before, I totally relate to the outrage to the point where one would want to not you, but me at one point want to be a lone wolf and do
Fortunately, it doesn't work.
and do the order thing. But the thing is that what I realize now is that was largely an expression of just not having any voice, and like and now there is possibility to have voice. And okay, we're not going to save everybody, but we have. I mean, if people have sense and goodwill, they can connect with us, and so we could avoid that danger of getting taken down and having lives ruined because we are so desperate to be heard. We don't have to be that desperate anymore, or desperate to pursue our autonomy. Now we have the means. I'm gonna close it up. Patrick,
right.
Thank you very much for talking, and I'm gonna save my StreamYard hour so that
yeah, I understand.
I can. We had Per Norden on last time. He's from Sweden. He's a really good guy, and he's on board with all this, and so is Mirth Baron, and see if I can get some others, including yourself. Welcome to because it's so that we can get the show on the road.
All right, I'll bid you a farewell. Thanks for having me on your stream. Appreciate it.
Thanks for talking. Bye for now.
See ya.